The path of Trailblazing and its Eon is one that likely every player would be familiar with. The main characters of the story follow this very path, and practically every person in the universe is aware of it, alongside its rather famous Eon, Akivili. Throughout the many stories we have heard of the Eon of Trailblazing, they seem to have largely been a force of good and was said to be the Eon closest to mortals. However, in the current setting, Akivili is said to have been long gone. We don't really know the details of their disappearance, but given their attachment to mortals and the many they have helped, why is it that one of the most beloved Eons is no longer in the setting? Did they disappear of their own volition, or were they forcibly removed? This is what we'll be discussing and theorizing in this video. Was the disappearance of Akivili just a product of the natural progression of the universe, or was there something else at play? Before we discuss this any further, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Among the many paths that occupy Star Rail's universe, the path of Trailblazing is likely the one that seems the least antagonistic. The Eon of Trailblazing, Akivili, is often spoken in high regard, and many across the universe owe them a debt of gratitude. Akivili often helped whoever they ran into during their travels across the cosmos, and through their trailblazing would connect many distant worlds together. Even the IPC largely credits Akivili and the Trailblazers for connecting distant worlds and star systems, functionally bringing the universe closer together. So why is it one of the seemingly most beloved Eons disappeared from the universe entirely? Did the path of Trailblazing become redundant, or was there some foul play? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's take a step back and first talk about the Eon of Trailblazing and how the path first materialized, as it has some relevance to the ideas I'll be proposing later. Before the path of Trailblazing existed, the person who would ascend to become Akivili originated from the isolated world of Pegana. It's unclear what spurred the birth of the Eon, but it was said that Akivili left Pegana in search of the very edges of the universe, the endpoint of the Tree of Existence. I suspect that their isolation developed within them a thirst for exploration and adventure, and this is what becomes the basis of this path, though this is just my headcanon. Akivili then created the Astral Express, and with each planet they traveled to, the Star Rail network was formed. This network of Trailblaze energy is what connects each planet to each other. It exists even to this day and is used by the IPC and the Xianzhou Alliance as safe corridors of interstellar travel. As they made their way through the cosmos, Akivili would spend much of their time amongst the mortals. They fought alongside them, celebrated with them, and even went on adventures with them, and this is how the Nameless were originally formed. Now, despite the life the Eon of Trailblazing had led, as mysteriously as their journey began, so too did it end. Akivili just disappeared one day. Some say they are long dead, with only the Nameless left to carry on their legacy, while others claim the Eon is still alive, though weakened or in hiding for some unknown reason. The truth is, we don't really know, and we're here to speculate on that. Now, the only source of information we have about how the Eons can die comes from Kafka. She states that as far as humanity is aware, there are three main ways that an Eon can die. The first is that two or more paths may overlap in terms of function or ideology, and the broader path would often end up devouring the smaller one and assimilating them. She doesn't explicitly mention it, but it's implied that when this happens, both Eon and path are absorbed. The second way an Eon can die is if another Eon of similar power or one that's stronger outright annihilates them. Wars and skirmishes among the Eons isn't unheard of, and each Eon has the power to completely end another if they so wished. Now, the third method is never revealed, as Kafka gets interrupted by the surrounding events before she can come out and say it. However, I have a feeling that it's related to the plan Elio has in place and why it wasn't revealed at that time. We'll come back to this third method a bit later when we explore one of the possible reasons for Akivili's disappearance. So if we take these as stepping off points, we can start to theorize a few possibilities as to why Akivili had to functionally disappear or perhaps die. Let's talk about the most straightforward possibility first, in that one of the other Eons functionally unalived them. As I've mentioned, wars amongst the gods are not uncommon. Sometimes it may be due to clashing ideals, other times it could be for an arbitrary reason. The Eons, despite being gods, actually fight quite often. Qlipoth was responsible for killing off the Leviathans and Tezzeraunth. Qipe absorbed Enna, and Lan is constantly in pursuit of Yaoshe. So perhaps Akivili simply made an enemy. I mean, Aha themselves have targeted Akivili and the Nameless on several occasions, and even outright succeeded at one point. Though admittedly, they weren't trying to outright kill Akivili, but just saw it as a funny joke. Akivili was the Eon closest to mortals and was quite involved in the universe itself. Perhaps, throughout their adventures and travels, they inadvertently crossed one of the factions of the other Eons, causing them to draw the ire of their gods. It's also possible that maybe Akivili's involvement created issues for one of the other Eons, such as saving some Abundance followers which might make Lan annoyed or disrupting Aha's fun. Again, an Eon killing other Eons isn't something new, and while possible, since we don't have a full recount of Akivili's travels, it's difficult to pinpoint any one of the 20 or so Eons that might have developed a grudge. Now, the other way Kafka mentioned an Eon can die is if the path itself clashes with another. Perhaps the Trailblaze path became intertwined in ideology with other paths, such as Elation, and ended up being absorbed. While this is possible, I'm not sure if there are any existing paths that have much overlap with the Trailblaze to begin with, which is mostly about discovery, exploration, and pushing past the unknowable. Perhaps erudition or elation could be possible, but the overlap doesn't seem to be too pronounced. An extension of this idea may come in the form of a redundancy instead of an overlap. We know that if paths overlap, one will try to devour the other, but what if a path becomes functionally useless, or at least to some degree has fulfilled its initial premise? Think of it like this. Let's say Nanook destroys everything. Would there still be a need for the path of destruction if there's nothing left to destroy? My guess is no. So perhaps Akivili, who set forth to search for the endpoint of the Tree of Existence, ended up actually finding it. They reached it, and once that happened, their adventure was functionally done. Perhaps it's something unique to the Trailblaze path, that once your adventure is concluded, the seat of the Eon is then vacated. This might explain why Akivili no longer inhabits the universe, and any of the Nameless are able to take on the mantle of Eon for their own adventure, if their desire is strong enough. It does seem like the most peaceful outcome so far, but we're not done yet. Let's circle back to that third method Kafka failed to mention. Given the Stellaron Hunter's plan is to make the main character out to be the hero, and this is to prepare them for their fight with Nanook, I can't help but wonder if what they are trying to replicate is the process or journey that Akivili themselves took in order to make the main character into an Eon. Remember that if force is being used, only an Eon can kill another Eon, at least according to Kafka. It's possible that the Hunters or their allies are responsible for the disappearance of Akivili and did so to vacate a seat the main character can now ascend into and occupy. I mean, Kafka sort of admits this earlier by saying that those Eons that have passed on leave behind empty thrones just waiting to be taken. Now, the Hunters may not be entirely responsible here, given the gaps in time, as the Astral Express was said to have laid dormant for thousands of years, and the Hunters seem to have only started operating fairly recently. So perhaps the Hunters are just taking advantage of a situation. Plus, we don't really know the mechanisms of ascension just yet, and maybe given enough power, one can usurp an Eon entirely, and that's what the Hunters want the main character to do, becoming the Eon of Destruction instead. Most of the ideas we've discussed so far are predicated on the fact that we accept Akivili is indeed dead, but what if they aren't? What if Akivili learned of the truth of the universe and is functionally laying low in preparation for something? I mean, they aren't technically the only Eon to have disappeared under odd circumstances. Long the Permanence and Idrilla the Beauty both have disappeared as well, so perhaps these Eons that are typically more connected to mortals compared to Eons like Nanook or IX have actually gone into hiding rather than outright dying. There are some hints to this as well, at least when it comes to Akivili. Specifically, the engines of the Astral Express are said to emanate with a kind of voice, a presence that is felt by the Nameless but not entirely explained or understood. Then you have the conductor of the train, Pom Pom, who is also rather odd but an accepted occurrence, and many have theorized that they are actually a weakened Akivili. On top of that, despite the Eon not existing, the path itself seems to protect those that follow the Trailblaze path, which is not something we typically see with other paths. So perhaps these Eons, specifically Akivili, are not truly dead, but hiding and preparing for something we don't yet know. I know I sound like a broken record by this point, especially if you've watched my other videos, but there's also the possibility that Akivili could have discovered the truth of the universe. That fate is a prison that forces mortals to act in the way the story has been designed. I would imagine an Eon that is all about discovery, adventure, and is touted to be the closest to mortals wouldn't be too happy about this truth if it were true. So perhaps this is what they are preparing for. One final theory I'll throw in is the idea that Akivili did indeed reach the edge of the universe and upon doing so, left. They are not traveling to other planets within the Honkai universe and have long left the Star Rail universe behind. This is an idea that some of you have shared where the traveler in Genshin Impact is or at least similar in nature to Akivili. This also kind of lines up with the idea that the Trailblaze is unique and once a person completes their journey, the seat of the Eon is made vacant. I mean, an adventure will always have an ending, right? So that's one possibility as well. The truth of it is that we just don't know. All these ideas, speculations, and theories are just that, guesses at what really happened. Despite Akivili being a prominent presence within the universe in the past, nobody seems to know what happened to them, and if they are that do, they seem pretty tight-lipped about it. Perhaps he did indeed disappear into the ether, never to return, or maybe there is a greater conspiracy here we just aren't aware of yet. Only time will tell. That brings the video to an end. If you have any alternative ideas on what might have happened to Akivili, feel free to share them in the comments. If you enjoyed or had fun watching the video, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.